Thanks. Thanks, Emily and Ashley, for providing this session for us. For those of you that might not know me, my name is Mary McCormack. I'm the statewide interpretation and wildlife viewing coordinator based in the headquarter Denver office. And it's been a huge priority for me and the wildlife viewing team. A big shout out to Trina Romero, who's kind of my partner in crime with wildlife viewing, to try to breathe new life into some of our wildlife viewing programs. And I think one of the ways to do that is really trying to understand more about people who identify as wildlife viewers here in Colorado, what kinds of programs or opportunities that they would like from us or that could help support and build that community. So really excited to have Ashley and Emily share some of the results from our kind of Colorado specific results from the survey that will help inform how we move forward in kind of, again, breathing new life into our wildlife viewing programs.
Great, thanks so much, Mary. I appreciate it and really appreciate your contributions as part of the stakeholder advisory team for this. So let me go ahead and share our screen here. Okay, does that look good, Emily?
Yes, you're good to go.
Okay, great. All right, well, thanks everybody for joining us. It's great to have a good crowd here and folks from all across the agency. We're talking about this report, as Mary shared. We have the state-specific Colorado results from the Wildlife Viewer Survey. And you can grab the QR code here if you wish to. Emily has also put the link in the chat. And then additionally, after the webinar, in a little over a week, we will be sending out all of the links that we've shared, as well as a link to the webinar recording itself. So our team that's put this together is myself, Ashley Dare. I'm an associate professor at Virginia Tech in the Department of Fish and Wildlife Conservation. Additionally, Emily was the lead author on this report for Colorado. And then we also worked with Christy Petotsky and Emma Pausley, who are also co-authors on this report. Additionally, our team includes other members who are part of the national and regional reports as well. And then we had a great steering committee for this project, including about 20 state agency reps. So it's been really a team effort. So in terms of what we're hoping to do with this webinar today, we would like to share with you a profile of wildlife viewers in Colorado and really focus in on how you can support wildlife viewers in the state, broaden your relevance to wildlife viewers who don't hunt and fish and might not have as strong a connection with your agency otherwise, develop financial support opportunities for wildlife viewers too. I will say that the report has far more in there than we're able to cover in a presentation here today. So this is the highlights, and if there's things that are of interest to you, we encourage you to dig into the report and find those specific sections and learn more. So I'm going to share with you a little bit of background to how we got started with this project, and then we'll move into the methods, which Emily will cover. So first, I want to share the definition that we've used. So when we're talking about wildlife viewing, we're talking about folks who closely observe, feed, and photograph wildlife, visit parks or natural areas to also observe, feed, or photograph wildlife, and then maintain plantings or native areas for the benefit of wildlife. This definition is probably pretty familiar for you. It's from the National Survey of Hunting, Fishing, and Wildlife-Related Recreation. We wanted to stick with that so that we could make some comparisons to some of the characteristics of those viewers to make sure methodologically that we were hitting the same group of people. We also clarified for our respondents that we weren't calling wildlife viewing something that just happened incidentally, that you happened to see some wildlife when you were gardening, exercising, hunting, fishing, or scouting for game. Instead, we were looking for people who are purposefully trying to view wildlife. So we applied for a multi-state grant with the Wildlife Viewing and Nature Tourism Working Group of AFWA, given a lot of interest in the states in wildlife viewing. As I'm sure you all know, trends in outdoor recreation show growing participation in wildlife viewing, while at the same time, we're seeing stable or declining rates in hunting or angling in most locations. A lot of that increase in wildlife viewing comes from around the home viewing, according to the National Survey of Hunting, Fishing, and Wildlife Related Recreation. And then we also found the same thing in our surveys as well. So at a national level, we have about a third of the US population engaged in wildlife viewing. When we talked to the state agency reps who were part of our steering committee for this project, they echoed that they were interested in understanding this growing number of individuals and also thinking about the potential influence that group could have in terms of supporting the agency, conservation behaviors, et cetera. We also heard that viewers are pretty difficult for state agencies to reach. While you have a hunting license or a fishing license database, it can be challenging to find viewers specifically. Yours is one of the agencies that includes parks as well, so it might be a bit easier for you, but still you don't have a viewer-specific database. And then, because of that, we heard from a lot of agencies that they just don't know a lot about viewers' thoughts, preferences, and behaviors besides the anecdotal type information. They do have information from the National Survey on whether or not people view close to home or away from home, the financial components of viewing, but not what people think about the agency or what they do in terms of conservation behavior. And there was a desire to be able to better serve and communicate with wildlife viewers and then other underserved groups that would probably be more likely to connect with the agency through viewing than through other types of wildlife-related recreation. And of course, then a lot of agencies were also interested in how could they connect viewers to mechanisms to contribute financially to the agency, since those mechanisms are not as readily available as they are for hunting and fishing licenses in most states. There's a lot more that we could say about the background of understanding wildlife viewers. We conducted an extensive literature review as we started this project, and we've also been doing wildlife viewing related research in my lab for quite a few years. Emily and Kelsey, two grad students in our project, put together this great literature review on wildlife viewing literature. And they've summarized in a really accessible way the key highlights. It's an easy to read document, not very long, and it allows you to get high level overview of what's already known about wildlife viewers. And then if you want to dig in on a specific study, you can go to the references section in there. I also wanted to point out another resource to you. As Mary said, this state project was part of a broader project that we looked at the national and regional levels related to wildlife viewers. And so we do have a report for that level data if you wish to compare Colorado to what's happening nationally or regionally. Also, that recommendation section includes a lot of case studies of things that other state agencies are doing that might be of interest to you and in line with the recommendations. A few of those we'll call out today in our presentation. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Emily, who's going to talk about how we approach this research.
Great. Thank you for the introduction, Ashley. It's great to be here with you all today. Ashley and I actually both went to Colorado State at different times, so we've really enjoyed having a chance to work with the state on this project. But first, I'll kick things off by talking about our survey methods. So we conducted a panel survey, which I'll define a little bit more in a few moments, but the survey from Colorado and the results you see here today are based off of 1,019 responses from a survey administered online in Colorado from October to December of 2021. The survey consisted of over 100 questions and enabled us to learn an awful lot about wildlife viewers in Colorado. The survey began with a screening question that asked wildlife viewers or just potential survey takers, do you participate in any of these following behaviors, which included feeding wild birds, feeding other wildlife, taking pictures, or closely observing wildlife. And in this study, we did separate feeding birds and feeding other wildlife because we know that not everyone wants to encourage feeding other wildlife, while we may want to encourage feeding birds. And if individuals indicated that they didn't participate in any of those behaviors, they did not take the survey, as we were really focused on understanding those wildlife viewers in Colorado. The survey covered Coloradan wildlife viewers' demographic characteristics, their viewing behaviors and interests, so what types of wildlife they like to view. We looked at their duration, location, and frequency of participation in wildlife viewing. We also took a look at their participation in other outdoor recreations, including hunting and angling. We looked at their level of specialization, so their skill level, as well as some of their wildlife viewing related expenditures and barriers and social support to their participation in wildlife viewing. We also looked at their likelihood of participating in conservation behaviors, both individually and with the CPW. We also looked at respondents' familiarity with, perceptions of, and trust in CPW. We examined their experience with CPW programs and services. We also looked at their past financial contributions to CPW and their likelihood of making future financial contributions to the agency. And finally, we looked at their preferred forms of viewing support from the agency, as well as how they would like to receive information from CPW. This survey was called a panel survey, which is essentially an online survey platform of individuals recruited to take surveys. For this project, we contracted with Qualtrics, a company that maintains these databases of potential survey takers and then compensates them financially, usually with a small gift card upon completion of the survey. A few things that are common methodological tools in panel surveys are attention checks, time limits, and quotas to ensure that we have high quality responses. So first of all, we use attention checks in this survey. And these are pairs of contradicting statements like, I trust the CPW and I don't trust the CPW. If someone indicates they strongly agree with both of these statements or strongly disagrees with both of them, that's a sign to us that they might be clicking through the survey or not reading things thoroughly. If someone kind of tripped two of these measures twice, then they were removed from our final survey. We also established a minimum completion time based off of a pilot of this survey, just to make sure that people were taking their time and being mindful with their responses. We conducted data analysis in SPSS, which is the statistical package for social science. We primarily used chi-square tests and t-tests to explore differences among consumptive and non-consumptive wildlife viewers. And this data set is now openly available for further analysis, and I'll put the link in the chat in a few moments. In this study, we took a close look at consumptive and non-consumptive viewers in Colorado. Non-consumptive wildlife viewers we define as those who have not participated in hunting or angling in the past 5 years, whereas consumptive wildlife viewers have participated in hunting and angling. And this was a really interesting comparison for us to do. My background is working a little bit more in the Park Service. And so when I thought about a wildlife viewer or a birder, I always kind of pictured somebody that very dedicated, had their binoculars, and probably wasn't a hunter. Whereas when I thought about hunters and anglers, I was thinking about a completely different audience of people. But what we found in Colorado and in the rest of the states is that there's a lot of overlap with these consumptive wildlife-related recreationists and wildlife viewers. Specifically in Colorado, there was almost a 50-50 split. 53% of our sample was non-consumptive wildlife viewers, and 47% of our sample was consumptive wildlife viewers. Taking a closer look, about 1/3 of all of our survey respondents said that they also participated in angling and wildlife viewing. 4% of survey respondents in Colorado participated in hunting and wildlife viewing, and 12% of our respondents were really busy and involved and participated in hunting, angling, and wildlife viewing. The third tool that we used in a panel survey was to establish quotas, and these are demographic standards against a known population. So there's the 2016 National Survey of Fishing, Hunting, and Wildlife-Related Recreation that some of you might be familiar with. And that survey kind of established a baseline for the age, gender, and education of wildlife viewers in the United States. And in our survey, we programmed with Qualtrics to kind of set that same pool of people. So the mean age of our survey respondents was 49 years old, which is similar to the findings from the 2016 National Survey. These are just a few tools we used to ensure that this was a really representative sample of who we know wildlife viewers in Colorado and the United States are. This is our first graph that takes a look at those consumptive and non-consumptive wildlife viewers. This black bar you see up top with that hatching is a statewide sample. So that's everyone who we surveyed in Colorado. That bright green or that second bar is the consumptive wildlife viewers. And those are the ones who participate in hunting and angling. And the purple bar is the non-consumptive viewers, so they don't participate in hunting and angling. And in this graph, you can see the spread of where people live in Colorado based on if it's an urban, small city, small town, or rural area. We found that across the board with both consumptive and non-consumptive wildlife viewers, a lot of them, in fact, 75% statewide, live in small cities or an urban area. We also were interested in the forms of wildlife viewing that these viewers participated in. And in Colorado, the most popular behavior was visiting parks and natural areas like CPW, where you all manage. The next most popular activity was photographing or taking pictures of wildlife. And you might be pleased to see that feeding other wildlife that's not birds is the least popular activity in the state. I did want to pause and just note these little stars that you see. Whenever there's a star, that means there's a statistically significant difference between the consumptive and non-consumptive viewers. And with that, I'm going to pass things back to Ashley to talk about 5 key insights from the recommendation section of the survey.
Thanks, Emily. So we organized our results by these 5 key insights. We felt it would be an easier way for you to walk away from the presentation with key things that you might want to consider implementing or doing as a result of what we found. So the 5 key things that we're going to cover today are: first, there seems to be evidence that providing more wildlife viewing and information and access is of interest to people. Secondly, promoting around the home viewing opportunities is really a key way to serve a lot of people. And then third, developing social support networks for wildlife viewers could be advantageous as well. And then additionally, we recommend how you can focus on broadening your relevance to wildlife viewers who do not hunt or fish, and then also develop financial contribution opportunities for wildlife viewers. So let's start first with this one about more viewing information and access. So we gave people a whole array of options for things that the state agency could do to support their wildlife viewing activities. And I'll show you that whole list here in a second. But what I wanted to highlight is that again and again, we saw more information at the top. So 49% of people said they want more information about where to go see wildlife. 45% said they want more information about wildlife in Colorado, just broadly. 37% said they want more information about how to view wildlife, and 35% said they want more information about where and when to view wildlife where there's no hunting. And then in the middle there, also of interest to quite a few people, 39% said they want access to more places to go viewing. So I'm going to pause on discussing that middle one about access and focus first on information. But here's the whole list. If anyone's interested, you can see that there's some more specifics of types of programs, of types of features, of training, of volunteering that were of less interest to our viewers. You can see also that in many cases, the consumptive viewers were higher on their interests for wildlife viewing programming, which I think calls out that not only can you serve a viewer who only views, you can also serve the more traditional audience for state fish and wildlife agencies of those who hunt and fish as well, by implementing these types of programs. And again, if you're interested in digging in more to these sorts of results, this sort of graph is in the report, so you can really think about these specific options in more detail. We also asked people, how do they want to receive more information from the agency? And we thought that that would be useful for you at this point in the presentation. So your website is of a lot of interest to people. 62% said that's how they'd like to receive information. 51% said printed materials, and 51% also said email updates. Again, I'll show you the full list if that's of interest to you. You can see it here. Those top ones that I called out up there quite high. Your online magazine was also higher than what we saw in other states. And also Facebook was high as well. And then the other thing that I want to point out to you is, again, we see those consumptive wildlife viewers again and again interested in more interested in these options for communications than non-consumptive viewers. So again, these can be ways to reach out to a less traditional viewing crowd while also serving your traditional audience as well. So the takeaway from this is viewers in Colorado want more information about wildlife, where to view it, how to view it. And they also do have an interest in turning to your website. So we checked out your website and what you have there related to viewers. We were happy to see that you're one of the few states that actually has a place in your menu where it clearly calls out, here's where you find information about wildlife watchers. In a lot of other states, it's much more hidden. So you all do have that there. And then additionally, you have extensive information about your birding trail, You have species profiles, which people were interested in the species. One thing that we noticed is you had a lot of emphasis on birding in your wildlife viewing information. It may be valuable for you to think about other types of wildlife as well. We found that Coloradans were most interested in land mammals for viewing, photographing, and observing, photographing, and feeding. So here you can see the results of what type of wildlife people had their preferences related to. And you were one of the states where land mammals came up just a tad higher than birds. In many other states, birds were the top. We also asked about marine mammals, even though we know that they're not in your state. We were providing people with all of the opportunities for viewing whether or not they were actually doing so in their state. You also seem to have pretty high interest in fish and reptile viewing, particularly amongst your consumptive audience. So maybe an opportunity for you to add some more information about taxa beyond birds. One of the things that we think explains this really strong interest in information is that a lot of viewers are in the beginner, novice, or intermediate level. This is how they self-identified in terms of their skill level. And I know this often comes across as surprising. You often hear about those wildlife viewers or the bird watchers, or you think of the wildlife photographers that are so into it, that are into their lists, traveling all over the place, have tons of expensive equipment. But if we think across the general wildlife viewer in your state, they have a lot less experience. So if you're trying to serve that broader swath of wildlife viewers, keeping in mind that you're really talking to beginners and novices, particularly if you're talking about non-consumptive viewers, can help you think about how to shape the information and messaging that you're providing. So this question of improving access. You guys do have a lot of places for people to go viewing. This is a map of your birding trail sites. And so the question is this really a lack of awareness issue, or is it a lack of access issue? So does it relate back to that? We want more information about where to go viewing. One thing to keep in mind is there is a really strong interest amongst wildlife viewers in participating on your state managed lands. So not only these Colorado birding trail sites, but your parks. As well. And that might be a place for additional infrastructure and outreach on the value of wildlife viewing, particularly in places where you might have large population centers and a lot of people who might have an interest in viewing wildlife without having to go far. And the reason I bring that up is we did find that the top 3 barriers to people viewing more than they are currently are lack of free time, which is often a barrier to people, right? We never have enough time for what we want to be doing. Distance to viewing locations, and also financial costs of viewing. So thinking about ways to make it really easy for people to quickly and cost effectively get to places where they can view is an important way to foster viewing. Another way to do so is about thinking about around the home viewing, which Emily's going to talk about now.
Thank you, Ashley. So those barriers tie really well in with the idea of promoting opportunities to participate in wildlife viewing at or around the home. We found that wildlife viewers in Colorado most frequently participate in wildlife viewing at their own home or property, which really emphasizes the importance of considering ways that CPW can promote wildlife viewing around the home. The second most popular location for wildlife viewing was on state managed lands, again tying into the fact how CPW lands could be used to further promote wildlife viewing. So our key takeaway from this is you can support around the home viewing through encouraging conservation habitat management and conservation behaviors. We surveyed wildlife viewers about their likelihood of participating in a variety of conservation behaviors with or in the support of CPW. We found that the majority of wildlife viewers were really likely to participate in cleaning up trash or litter, enhancing wildlife habitat, or collecting data on wildlife or habitat. These are plenty of opportunities that CPW can develop programs or services to support more participation in wildlife viewing, or even consider at a CPW cleanup or trash day, just providing a little bit more information about wildlife viewing, maybe some of those printed materials or handouts to help connect the public closer to wildlife viewing. Our third takeaway from this presentation is the importance of developing social support networks for wildlife viewers. In the survey, we asked wildlife viewers about their perceived social support from these 4 groups: family, friends, peers, and mentors. We found that a lot of wildlife viewers felt supported by their family and friends, again, kind of tying wildlife viewing to that around the home activity, but they felt less supported from peers and mentors. And we identified this mentor role as one that CPW could potentially foster by developing more programs and services to educate people about how to participate safely in wildlife viewing. This is also an important connection to BIPOC viewers in Colorado. As you can see here from this box on the bottom left of the screen, about 76% of wildlife viewers in Colorado were white only, so they were white and not Hispanic or Latino. Now, about a 1/4 identified as BIPOC or Black, Indigenous, or people of color. And the reason that we're seeing a little bit less participation from BIPOC viewers in Colorado versus the total population, which is about 33% of Coloradans, according to the US Census, are BIPOC, is because of a concept called the don't loop. And essentially, under this theory, if you don't meet others who are engaged in a particular activity, the odds are that you will not take interest in that activity yourself, which further highlights the importance of these mentorship roles from communities that aren't currently participating in wildlife viewing as much. One case study to support this is from South Carolina, where we also conducted this study, and they developed a very expansive BIPOC community engagement program. In 2015, they began their community engagement program and hired a Hispanic outreach coordinator. She was bilingual, and she developed bilingual resources and developed outreach strategies tailored to these communities that they were hoping to connect closer to wildlife in South Carolina. In 2021, based on the success of these programs, they started to develop a similar program to reach the Black population in South Carolina and have seen a lot of success in diversifying their participation in wildlife viewing activities in South Carolina. And another audience to consider promoting and supporting their experience in wildlife viewing is people with accessibility challenges or disabilities. In this study, we asked wildlife viewers, to what extent do you experience accessibility challenges? We define these as the difficulties someone experiences in interacting with or while using the physical or social environment while trying to engage in a meaningful activity, such as wildlife viewing or birding. This may be a result of a mobility challenge, blindness or low vision, intellectual or developmental disabilities, mental illness, being deaf or hard of hearing, or other health concerns. And in Colorado, we found that over 1/3 of all wildlife viewers said that they experienced somewhat, quite a bit, or a great deal of accessibility challenges while trying to participate in wildlife viewing. To further support these communities and populations, you can consider spotlighting accessible wildlife viewing or birding sites in the state. This organization, Birdability, in partnership with Audubon, maintains a map of accessible birding locations in the state where anyone can go through and upload information about a site and its accessibility. This may be one way to further support wildlife viewing for people who experience accessibility challenges in the state. Another way to kind of promote wildlife viewing to people with accessibility challenges in Colorado, going back to your website, is considering adding a little bit of information about participating in wildlife viewing under the accessibility tab, where they have lots of information already about accessible fishing and hunting.
All right, I'm going to take it over here and talk about the 4th recommendation, broadening your relevance to wildlife viewers who do not hunt and fish. So we found in our survey that consumptive and non-consumptive viewers do have really different perceptions of and experiences with CPW. And for non-consumptive viewers, there seems to be a need to increase their basic familiarity and then subsequent levels of connection with you, and could do so through providing tailored support that might also benefit that consumptive viewer crowd as well. So we asked a really simple question: how familiar are you with Colorado parks and wildlife? And we found across the state that about half of our participants said that they were extremely familiar, very familiar, or moderately familiar. Maybe I should say that was closer to about 3/4 of folks. But where we see some difference is between the consumptive and non-consumptive groups. You can see that that level of very familiar and extremely familiar is higher for consumptive wildlife viewers than it is for non-consumptive wildlife viewers. And this is a pattern that we saw across all of the states where we did our work. We also looked at logo recognition. And first of all, I want to say logo recognition is quite high in your state. That's great. A lot of people have seen the Colorado Parks and Rec sign, and they know what it relates to. But still, again, we see that the recognition is higher for consumptive wildlife viewers than non-consumptive wildlife viewers. And so there's some indication of some differences here in terms of their general familiarity with your agency. And we see even more differences emerge when we compare their experience with your programs, your services, and their level of financial contributions. We provided people with a list of general ways that they could participate in programs or services with your agency. This list was developed so that it could be used across all states, but Mary helped us make sure that we were selecting only options for people to see that were actually accurately an opportunity in your state. And what I want to point out is what we have in the box at the bottom. There were about a third of non-consumptive wildlife viewers who had no experience at all in the last 5 years with programs or services in your state that might be of use or of interest to wildlife viewers, where it was only 20% of consumptive viewers who said the same related to these wildlife viewing related opportunities. So it again shows that there's more space here for really trying to bring in these non-consumptive wildlife viewers and providing connections with your agency. You can also see across the board that the percentage of people in that consumptive viewer category that selected all of these options was higher than in the non-consumptive viewer category. And then not surprisingly, there's a connection with people actually utilizing your programs and benefiting from your programs, and then also the financial contributions that they provide to your state. We looked at financial contributions in two ways. One, those non-voluntary sort of contributions where people need to buy a license or a pass in order to be able to participate in an activity. And then also voluntary contributions where people could decide on their own that they wanted to provide a donation. So for the non-voluntary contribution opportunities, you can see here that, again, the consumptive folks were more involved in contributing in that way. Of course, many of these are tied to those consumptive activities, the fishing license, the hunting license, that the stamps that they may need to buy related to hunting. And then though, when you look at your entrance passes, your permits, or a fee for programs or events offered by CPW, you still see the consumptive group is higher, and that's a statistically significant difference, but it's not as pronounced in terms of the level of difference between the two groups. The other thing I wanted to point out is you see that for some of these, like fishing license, we have 70% of people saying that they are buying one of those in the last 5 years. So some of these non-voluntary options are utilized by quite a few people. That's something I wanted to state, because when you look at the voluntary options, of course, they're much lower, right? People aren't necessarily required to utilize these options in order to get a benefit. Now, you are one of the few states with the lottery ticket option that goes back to funding for you all. And so that's the option that was at the highest here in terms of what folks were utilizing. Again, we're seeing consumptive group higher on all of these options, but not quite as high or as much of a difference as we saw for things like a fishing license or a hunting license. And then I do want to call out a difference that existed between consumptive and non-consumptive viewers, and that is how much they thought that your prioritization of programs and services was in line with what they thought it should be. About 70% of viewers, regardless of what type of viewer they were, said, yeah, you all are prioritizing wildlife viewing adequately in the state. And then if we look at how many people said it's not enough, it's about 25% or a little bit less than 25% in your state. And it's shared thought amongst the consumptive viewers as well as the non-consumptive viewers. And that said, there's a few more consumptive viewers who think that it's too much, but it's not a stark difference between those two groups. So all that to say that if you all do decide to do more to support wildlife viewers, you'd have a lot of folks, regardless of which group they're in, that would be happy to see that you're doing even more. and very few who would be disappointed. Okay, so let's go back to these financial contribution opportunities and look at what people said they would be interested to do in the future. The first thing that I want to point out is across most of these mechanisms for funding, we found that people said in the future they would be more, or that they would be willing to contribute in these ways at a higher level than we saw what they've been doing in the past. One explanation for this could be that people always have higher expectations of themselves than what they follow through on. But the other explanation could be that you have a lot of opportunity to connect with people and maximize or leverage this potential interest. And so that's something that you all could be thinking about. The lands pass, of course, was highest here in line with what we'd seen before, but again, a higher percentage. Fishing license at 61%, and then a fee for program or event, a lot of interest there, more so than what we saw people were doing in the past. And then if we look at voluntary options, those tangible products really pop up there on the top, people saying, yeah, I'd be willing to buy products from the agency and to benefit the agency if I had the opportunity to do so at a much higher level than how many of them are currently doing so. Same with the conservation lottery ticket, and then also a voluntary donation to state income tax being quite high. Now you might say, okay, that's great. So how do we get them to actually follow through on their intentions to do this in the next few years? And one thing that we wanted to suggest is by making it really clear what that money's going towards. We found across the board that when we asked people if certain funding connections for where the money went would actually get them to give more money. And people were interested in many of these opportunities. So how likely would you be to provide more financial support than you currently do to CPW if your contributions were used in the following ways? Now, there's a slight difference amongst these groups here. You can see rare and vulnerable species slightly higher if we look at just the extremely likely and very likely. But for most of these, it's about 70% of people saying they would give more money at a moderate to extremely likely level if they knew the funds were being used in that way. So some clear messaging to folks about how their money is being used could be really useful for making sure that they are interested in giving you funds. We found the same thing in Virginia when we were initially doing a project before this state or this national level project. And Virginia has used those findings to create a program called Restore the Wild, where they connect a membership type program, sort of like what you'd have for an NGO, with specific funding for habitat conservation. And each year they have specific habitat conservation projects that they go back and tell the donors that they used their funds for. And we believe that that's going to be a really useful direction for them. And they are finding increasing numbers of contributions every year in the past 3 years that they have done this. And it's a great way for them to increase their connection with viewers, especially non-consumptive viewers. All right, so that's it for our insights and recommendations. We just want to talk a little bit about the next phase of this project. We got a phase 2 multi-state grant, which we're super excited about. Again, working in collaboration with the Wildlife Viewing and Nature Tourism Working Group that Mary's involved in. And that's going to allow us to distribute our results even further at workshops, conferences, and meetings. Your state is one of about 16 states that's getting state-specific results. And we did do a national level webinar, but we're excited to be able to go to some face-to-face things like the North American and AFWA meetings and regional AFWA meetings as well. We're also supporting a community of practice with agencies to support them in further implementing their survey results. This uses a combination of coaching from us and then also peer support from their peers who are also doing similar projects to make sure that the results from the survey are actually informing programming. So every state that's involved in this is choosing their own project and developing a plan for that project and hopefully getting close to or through implementation over the course of the year that we're working together. Ultimately, this will result in a website with resources for other states. to be able to replicate the same sort of projects using templates that other states have used, and also seeing examples of success stories of how states are creating wildlife viewing programs and activities based upon the results of this survey. That community of practice will also be meeting at the Pathways Conference, which is a human dimensions conference located in your own state. I'm sure you all have heard that Colorado State University hosts this every couple of years in your state. This year, Virginia Tech is co-hosting it along with the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies. So this conference, more than in other years, is really focused on serving state wildlife agency staff, and also really focused on thinking about this audience of people who are non-consumptive wildlife viewers or interested in wildlife in the non-traditional sort of way, the term of mutualist related values. So we encourage you to attend if you have time to do so in the beginning of June. And we think it'll be a great opportunity for you to explore, a variety of research that is in line with this sort of work. And then also application projects. I know Mary is planning to present there as well. We're also going to be doing some future analysis as part of the phase 2 project. We are going to be digging in more to rural and urban viewers. We've heard from a lot of state agencies that they're particularly interested in understanding if they need to do something different to be drawing in that urban audience than the rural audience. And then Emily is doing a variety of analyses related to accessibility challenges data as part of her thesis research, and we'll be sharing out those results once she's finished that analysis as well. And then there's so much that you all could do if it's of interest to you with your state data, looking at differences by income level or by how skilled someone is at viewing, or age differences. We expect that would probably show a lot of differences related to the communications mechanisms. So as Emily said, the data set's there for you all. Feel free to use it for whatever is useful for you as you think about how to approach wildlife viewers. So as a reminder, we've only covered part of what's in this report. Please check it out. There's an executive summary that allows you to see a high-level summary of results, a table of contents that can point you to whatever section's useful for you, and then extensive tables if you really want to get the specific numbers on a part of the findings. So with that, here's our contact information. Emily's put a box around her name there because she's the best to reach out to right now. I'm technically on sabbatical this year, so I am not on top of my email. And we also have a brief evaluation survey for you to take, which would be helpful to get your feedback on how this webinar went, but it also asks you some questions about how you might apply these results that will be really helpful to us in phase 2 as we think about creating resources that will be useful to a variety of agency staff. So with that, we're done and happy to take questions. I want to turn it over to Mary first and see, Mary, did we miss anything that you think is important to call out or anything that you wanted to make sure that people heard?
I don't think so. I think that was a great, high level overview. I know the report's 130 some pages. So it's a lot to condense down into a presentation. Just want to let people know that that we are part of the community of practice 2 project. So for that phase 2, Trina and I are going to be part, and we've decided, especially based on the results from this report and the survey, is to focus on that around the home viewing. So that's kind of going to be our focus for the community of practice. We also wanted to talk about responsible and ethical viewing, and we thought, well, that's something we could kind of probably tie into around the home. So anyone that's interested or wants to chat with Trina or I about that, it's still very early in the process. We haven't done anything yet, but that's going to be the focus for us. So just in case anyone wanted to know about that piece of it.
Great. Thanks so much for bringing that up, Mary. Good point. All right, I'm going to stop sharing for right now so we can more easily see people. Feel free to raise a hand, just come off of mute, put something in the chat, whatever way works best for you.
I'm wondering, Ashley, or Emily, if you could, is there anything that you found to be potentially interesting from the Colorado results when compared to the other states or even the national survey, like anything that you're like, whoa, this really sticks out for people that identify as viewers in Colorado?
For me, it was the interest in land mammals because the vast majority of the states, it's primarily birders, and then there's a little bit of a gap before land mammals. But I think that interest in land mammals is a great opportunity to really spotlight the beautiful mammals that are in Colorado and help to promote safe and ethical viewing around that, especially with making sure you're maintaining that safe distance with large ungulates.
Yeah, great point, Emily. And then, there's some other, differences that you expect, like the lottery thing comes out as something not only that people are contributing to, because you have that, but also stronger interest in that in the future than what we saw in other states that don't even have that as a mechanism. And, there's slight differences, like Idaho, your next door neighbor, has more consumptive viewers than you all have, and you all have more of the non-consumptive viewers. But I think Emily's point about the land mammals is a key one, and something that we saw in a lot of the Rockies states compared to, the East Coast or Midwest states. Any other questions or comments are welcome too. Okay, well, if there aren't, you have our email addresses and you're welcome to reach out. Hopefully we'll see some of you at Pathways and could also chat with you all there. And if you haven't already had a chance, please do click on that survey. It should just take you a couple of minutes. Tell us how you liked the webinar and let us know how you might use these results in the future. Check out an email coming from us in about a week and a half, where we will be sharing the link to this presentation if you'd like to share it with anyone else, as well as links to all of those resources that we mentioned. So thanks so much, Mary, for coordinating this with us and all your help along the way with the project, and to you and Trina for reviewing the draft as well of the report. That was really helpful.
Yeah, no, thank you all. Thank you so much for organizing this. I know there'll be a lot of people that weren't able to join us that would love to see the recording and the other resources. So thank you.
You're welcome. All right, take
Thanks,
care.
everyone. Have a good day.